Good morning, everyone. My name is Callie Bubb. I am a Tier 3 Support Specialist at Fluke, and this is our monthly Fluke Connect webinar, and we are going over Fluke Connect Asset Reports today. Just a few housekeeping items before we get started. All phones will be muted during the entire presentation. But if you do have a question, feel free to type those into the question box and I'll be able to answer those at the end of the presentation. Please limit the questions to the topic of today's webinar, which is the asset reports. Also, we always record these webinars and we upload them to our quick start page on the Excelix website in the next few days. Here's the webinar outline. So we're going to start with what is an asset? How do we create an asset and an asset group inside of a Fluke Connect account? So we'll go over that in the website application and also the mobile app. How do we assign a measurement to an asset? So again, we'll do that in both the website and the mobile app. Then we'll get into how to create an asset report in the web and the mobile app. So let's start with what is an asset. So inside of Fluke Connect, you will want an asset record for anything that you need to trend data on, view the historical measurements, basically anything that you need to view the analysis on. We can also create an asset that has test points. So any type of analysis that you might need to do, say you have multiple test points on one asset, you will want to have or create a separate test point for those specific points of data where you'll log data for each location. So just an example is a motor. So a motor has, different parts to it. So you might want to record data on the bearings, the fan, or the shaft. So you want to make sure that you do have test points for each of those created on the motor. You can also create a test point on a test point. So if you have, the shaft, you can create a test point underneath the shaft and associate specific measurements to that separate test point. So again, any part of your motor that you want to see the analysis for inside of your Fluke Connect account, it's important to create a separate test point. So inside of Fluke Connect, we can create asset groups. So it's basically just a folder system where you can separate out all of your assets so they're not just all jumbled together. So the ungrouped assets folder, that is a default folder whenever you create a new Fluke Connect account. And if you create an asset without selecting a folder, the asset will be created inside of the ungrouped assets. You can also create subgroups within an asset group. So say you have a specific office location and then you would like to separate out your assets by a specific department or each room or building, things like that. You can create subgroups underneath the folders. So now let's get into how to create an asset and a group. So starting off with creating your asset groups, you'll go to your Assets tab inside of your Fluke Connect account. Over on the left-hand side, you'll have a panel with the list of all of your asset groups. So it will have all of the main groups listed. So you'll click the plus button to add a new group. A window will open up where you can enter in the group name, and then you can click Save. Now you'll see here next to my New York office, it does have the little caret or an arrow, so that means that there are subgroups underneath this main asset group. So if I want to add a subgroup, you'll just hover over the main folder, click the 3 dots, and then you'll have this drop down. So you can click Add Subgroup and create that folder underneath the New York office. You can also rename your main folder. We can move this folder or we can delete it. Now, if we want to create an asset, again, we'll be on the Assets tab inside of your Fluke Connect account. On the right-hand side, you have a plus button. Now, you will want to be clicked into the specific folder that you want to create the asset for. And you'll see under the basic information, this is where you put all of your asset info. But you will see that the folder name is listed up at the top. So that's how you know that you clicked into the correct folder or subgroup. And then you can enter in your name, asset ID, and populate or select a value for the asset type from the list that is populated on the screen. Once you save your asset, you can scroll down and create your asset points. So you'll click the little down arrow and you'll be able to add a component. The box will open where you can name your test point and then you can click Save. Okay, so I'll just open up my video. So we'll click the Assets tab, and this is a list of all of our ungrouped assets because currently we're clicked into that specific folder. So again, if we want to create a new asset, we'll click the plus button over on the right-hand side. Enter in the asset name and the asset ID. Select the asset type from the list populated. You can also update the status if you'd like. Enter in some notes on why you selected that specific status, and then we can click Done. Once the record's saved, you can go down to the asset test points. And let's add a component. And you'll see here, underneath new asset, now we have test point 1. We can add another test point. This one's named component 2. Now, underneath each test point, underneath the dropdown, you can add a component, edit the component name, move the component, and delete the component. So this is where you would come if you need to create a test point for the test point. So I renamed test point 1 to component 1. And I'm also going to create a test point on this component. So I created component 1 bearing, and you'll see based on the tabs that we have new asset, component 1, and then component 1 has a bearing. If I go back out to my assets tab, now we can go ahead and create a group. So we'll enter in the group name. And now my group is created. So we can click the 3 dots next to the name. We can add a subgroup, rename, move, or delete. So we'll create a subgroup called city location. And now we can add assets to this subgroup. And you'll see here under the basic info that it does enter in our folder path for where we are creating this specific asset. We can also move assets to a new group that we just created. So you can click the 3 dots on the right-hand side of the asset and then select move, and it will open up your folder system. So we want to move it to city location. And now if we go back to that folder, we can see that asset that we moved. If we click into the folder, we'll see all of the asset information, and our folder has updated on the asset. Okay, back to the presentation. So now let's go over how to create an asset and an asset group inside of mobile. So we'll go to the Assets tab inside of your Fluke Connect account on your mobile device, and it will display your asset groups. If you click the 3 dots in the upper right-hand side, at the bottom of the screen, you'll be able to add an asset or add an asset group. So if we click add an asset group, this window will populate here, and we can create the group name. If we click add asset, it will automatically create the asset inside of ungrouped assets, but you are able to change it if you go to, if you click this arrow here and then select a different folder. You can enter in the asset name, the asset ID, select the asset type, add images, the components and test points, and alarms right from this Create New Record screen. Now let's go to the video demo. Okay, so we're on the home screen. And if we go to the Assets tab, it opens up our groups. And again, we'll click the 3 dots in the upper right-hand side. And then we have Add Asset and Add Asset Group. So if we click Add Asset, it will automatically put this into the Ungrouped Assets folder. We'll just enter in an asset name and an asset ID. We can update the status and click Save. If we click into the record that we just saved, we can also go ahead and create new test points. So you can add test points after the record save or during the creation. So here I'm adding component 1. And if I click the 3 dots on our test point, let me just go back a little. If I click the 3 dots here, I can add the subcomponent, edit, or delete. So this component has a bearing. I can create a new group. Now, if I click into an asset group, we can create a folder inside of the group or the subgroup. We can also click the plus button up here, and this will create an asset in this specific folder. Or you can click Add Asset. So we'll enter in the asset name, asset ID, and here in the creation, we're creating some components. So we created 2 test points, and again, you can create or update the component here by clicking the 3 dots. We'll update our asset status, and it's saved. Now let's go into how to assign a measurement to an asset. So inside of the website, you'll go to your measurements tab at the top, and that will bring up the list of all of the measurements that are currently inside of your account. Now under each specific measurement, it will either say assign to an asset, and it will have this link icon next to it. So this means that this specific measurement is not linked up to an asset. If it is linked to an asset, you will see it says associated asset, and then it has your folder path and then the asset ID or the asset name if yours doesn't have an asset ID. So if we did not, or if a specific file does not have a specific asset selected, you can click this, and then it will take you to your asset group folder system. You can go and find your asset that you would like to assign to that specific measurement. If you do select an asset that has test points, it will display those test points down below. Whichever record or asset or test point that it is selecting will be highlighted in gray. So for that specific measurement, I am assigning it to the bearing. So I select bearing, and then you can click assign. I'll go ahead and show a video. Okay, so we're on our measurements tab. We're just scrolling through. So you can see that this specific thermal image, it's associated to my lights asset that is inside of my test group. So this specific thermal image is not associated to a specific asset, so it says assigned to asset. So we'll click that link, and again, it brings you to your asset groups. So we can go into our New York office city location folder, and we can select our asset. So again, whichever one you select will be highlighted in gray. So I want this to be associated to my bearing. And you'll see here, it shows that it's associated to the bearing that's on motor 1 in city location, and then the New York main folder. You can also mass assign measurements inside of the website as well. So if you just click or check off the measurement in the upper left-hand side, that will select the record. So if we select 2, and then you'll see the link icon. So it matches the link under the assigned to asset. It'll just make sure that you want to continue, that you're assigning multiple records to a specific asset. Again, we'll just do the same path. So we select the specific group, and we want to select an asset from our city location. Now this asset does not have any test points, so it automatically selects your asset. So if we scroll back down, we can see that the associated asset is now updated. Now let's go over how to assign a measurement to an asset inside of the mobile account or the mobile app. So we'll go to the Measurements tab, and you'll see your list of measurements for this specific account. Very similar to the website, you have a section that has, it says asset, and if it's unassigned, it will say unassigned. If it is associated to a specific asset, it will have the same file folder path and then your asset name. So if we want to assign this specific measurement to an asset, we'll just click this bar here, and it will take you to the measurement details. We'll click this asset section again, and it will bring you to our asset groups. So we can go to our New York office, and I have my boiler asset inside of that folder. So then you select the boiler. You'll see that this asset section updated, and then we can click Save. So if we go to measurements, again, here's a view of all of our measurements inside of this account. So this specific thermal image is not associated to a specific asset. It says unassigned. So we'll just click this bar here. It brings us to our asset groups. So this is the screen where we will select our specific asset. If there are test points, they will be listed underneath, and you can just select which specific asset or test point you would like to assign it to, and then click Save. Very similar to the website, you can also mass assign multiple measurements to one asset. So down at the bottom, there is a link icon. So if we click that, that allows us to select these specific measurements. So you just click on them and then it will update with a checkbox that you have this selected. And same thing, we'll go through and find our specific asset, select it, and then it will update. Now, one thing with the mobile app, you will see that it does flash a specific number. So that just means that currently the account is syncing 2 measurements to the Fluke Connect cloud. So when it's syncing to the Fluke Connect cloud, that means that the data is updating so you can view the information on the website. And depending on what type of measurement, it will also link up to the Fluke Connect desktop app. So if I scroll through and go back to my measurements, we'll see that our thermal image is associated to my ceiling. And the measurements that I did the mass assignment to are updated to my boiler. Now let's get into creating an asset report in the web app. So there's a few different places that you can create an asset report from. So you can go to the Reports tab up at the top, click Create Report, and select Asset Report. You can also create a report from the individual asset. So if you're clicked into the specific asset, over on the right-hand side, you have the 3 dots. We can create a new report by selecting the first option, or we can add this asset to an existing report. So on the report screen, click the 6 dots over here and it will open up the preview and the panel on the right-hand side. You can check off this cover page box. So if you do want a cover page, just make sure that it's checked off. If you don't, just uncheck it and then you can go right into your asset details. So on the cover page, we can update the header information. So you can add a small logo up at the top, have your company name and custom text if you need to add anything that might not be standard. Then we can update the middle of the page information. So you can upload another logo here that's a little bit larger. Again, add the company name, the address. It will have the creation date. We can add a report title and a subtitle. And then we can also add footer information. So you can have the created by user, created date, and any custom text. Next, you can click the 6 dots next to asset details, and this will go into your asset information. Once you click this, it will open up this right side panel with the information that is specifically for your assets. So we can modify the header information. So it has drop downs that you can select a specific value. And then there's a section for all of the asset report details. So you can include the asset thumbnail, asset status, asset work order, the analysis graph. If this report is for specific measurements, you can have a measurement table and select the specific time frame. And you can also include thermal image information. So if you do check or uncheck these specific items, it will add or remove from your asset report. So if you uncheck the asset status, it will remove this from the table. If we're on the report list view, we have a few different options. So on the right-hand side of each report that is currently saved in the account, there's a drop-down, and we can view. So that's basically editing the existing report. We can email it to ourselves. We can duplicate the report. So if you need to, send one report to the customer, but you want yours to have a little bit more information, you can create the first report, duplicate it, and then make your modifications and send that to the customer. And then you can also delete your report. When you select the report, so you can select one or multiple, you have the option to download the PDF, email the report to yourself, and then also a mass delete. Okay, so let's open up my video. So again, we're on our reports tab. Here's my list of reports in my account. So if I just hover over the drop down, I can view, email, duplicate, and delete. So I want to go ahead and create my new report. So we'll click cover page, and it will open up the preview and the panel information. So again, we can add a company logo that goes in the header. We can add custom text that will go up here on the right-hand side. A larger company logo. We can enter in the company name. Add an address or any additional company information that you would want. Here's our report title, and we can add a subtitle. There's another section for additional information that might not go into any of the other sections. And then here's our footer information. So it will automatically have the created by and the created date, and we can add custom text to the footer. Now we'll click the asset details, and the asset details is two separate pages. So we can customize the header, so we can have nothing up at the top, the created by, creation date, page number, a range of the page number and the total page number, and then custom text. We can also customize the left and right footer as well. Now we can go into the asset report details. So again, if we check or uncheck, it will update each screen to include or not include that specific section. So the measurement table and the thermal image, that information is on the second page of the asset details. And we can enter in a specific range, So now if we want to add assets, we can click this Add Asset button. And it will bring us to our asset groups. So I want to go to my New York office, and you'll see the checkbox on the right-hand side. So I check off my boiler, and you can also mass select. So I added my assets, and now I can click Save. Okay, so once our report's saved, we can check off the box and then click Download. And that will download a PDF version. So here's my asset report. And if I scroll through, it has all of my different measurements for the specific assets that I have, that I had selected. And again, we can mass select, we can download, email, or delete. You can also sort by modified date, title, report type, modified by, and we also give you the ability to search from this screen as well, just in case you have a lot of reports. Now let's go into how to create an asset report in the mobile app. So we'll want to go to, from the home page, we'll go to the Reports tab. Up in the top, you'll see a Create button on the right-hand side. We'll want to select Asset Report. And from this screen, we can check if we want a cover page or we can uncheck it. We can click Add/Remove or click Add/Remove Assets here. And that will bring us to our asset groups. So again, we can mass select our assets that we would like in this specific report. On the next page, there's two separate tabs. So the first one is for the cover page. So again, we can add all of our company information and logo. We can add our report title, subtitle, and we can also update the footer information. On the Assets tab, we can update the header and footer information with the same fields as the web app. We can check off all the same report details, include thermal image information, have a specific date range for the measurement table, all that fun stuff. So then we can click Save. Once the report is saved, you'll see it listed with all of your other reports. We can click the three dots next to the report and we can edit or delete the report. If you click the report information over here, it will open up your report and you can swipe through. So this one is 4 pages. And so we can look through the PDF file. And there's also a download button at the bottom. So that allows you to email the report. So now let's go into our video. Okay, so we'll go to our Reports tab. So here's a list of all of my reports and we'll click Create, Asset Report, click Add/Remove, We'll go through and select my specific asset. And now we can update the cover page. My report title. Update my footer information. And now go to the Asset tab. So again, we can select our header, our footer, and then check off what we would like to see under the report details for our asset. Again, you can select a specific date range for your measurements. And click Save. So again, if we click the three dots, that will give us the ability to edit or delete. And my report has saved. And if I just click into it, we can see all of the information on our report. So if you do need to email it, you can just click the download button at the bottom, and that will open up the email app on your phone so you can email the report. Okay, so that is the end of the presentation. So I'll just put myself on mute if there are any questions. So feel free to type those into the question box. Again, we also upload all of our webinars to our Quick Start page, and this is the link below. So this webinar will be under the handheld tools section. And that's where we upload all of our other webinars. So feel free to head to our Quick Start page and review all of our previous webinars. So I'll just put myself on mute and see if there are any questions. But thank you everybody for joining today, and I hope you have a great Thursday.